So, welcome for another episode of Black Valley. I got Brother Long here joining us today. So, good morning to you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
And today, in our previous episode, we talked about the customer hypothesis. And with the customer hypothesis, again, we had some assumptions that we made about our customers. And so, our goal was to test out those assumptions. Again, we talked about how most products, 95% of all products fail in the marketplace. And they fail because we have the wrong assumptions, the wrong ideas about what our customers value. And so we create the customer hypothesis, we test it out, and then we get more information so that we can use the right information to make the right decisions. So we do the right activities so we can increase our revenue. And that's what it's all about from that perspective. And, you know, the same way we test out our customer hypothesis, there's this other side of Agile and Scrum. And the other side of it is we want to continuously improve. We want to continuously get better. So not just getting more revenue, but also when we get more productive, we get better, we can decrease our cost structure. And so the same way you have a customer hypothesis, you also want to develop a productivity hypothesis. So the customer hypothesis was all based upon what is the most valuable thing? What are the aspects? What are the things we believe about our customers? Now what we're going to do is let's say, what are our beliefs about how we can change to improve our operations to get more productive, right? How can we get better? And each sprint, we should think about what we can do to make things better. And again, this is naturally part of the sprint review. The sprint review is designed for us to think about how to get better and better. And you take some of those ideas and bring it to the next sprint. But you should have a hypothesis. You shouldn't just do things. You should create a hypothesis so you can test it so it's scientific, right? So I think about, well, what's going to improve our operations? What's going to make things better? Then I think about, well, how am I going to know, right? What would I see externally observe to let me know things are better? And how am I going to measure it? So all those things should be thought about in advance so that you can actually test it out. I do some of these things to improve. I look to see, did I reach the acceptance criteria for approval? Right? Did I make the improvements? And do the metrics show it? Do I have evidence that things are actually better? Then I can look at it and we can all be aligned. If you don't do this procedure, you'll have one idea about how we can get better. So you're working on one thing. Another person has another idea how things can get better. So they're working on another thing. So we aren't aligned. We aren't working together as a group. And sometimes you can skew your efforts such that you make less progress. You get less productive. What do you think about this?
I think that this needs to be a mode of operation. It's like a mentality um, that you can implement in anything you do. What was happening in my mind was thinking about all the things in the past, the community work that I've been involved in, where this type of approach could have made all the difference.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is this idea about experimentation is sort of a paradigm shift
Yes.
because most of our lives we've just been taught, hey, you just do stuff. And the focus has been things will get better if you do more activity. We have phrases, we don't have enough time in a day because we want to do more stuff. But that's not what makes you successful. What makes you successful is doing the right stuff. And the only way you know if it's the right stuff is if you test it out and you have data to support it. Right? It's a big paradigm shift, right?
It, definitely.
Now, the the beauty of this method is that if you clearly define how you're going to test things out, right? So here's my hypothesis. Here's how I'm going to test things out. The activities that you need to do and focus on will become readily apparent. So a lot of times in our daily work, talk about community work, we're sitting, and I don't know how many times I've been invited to these think tanks where we'll have a whole bunch of people we get together and we're just thinking about what we should do. And a lot of times in those think tanks, we would leave and we hadn't agreed on what we should do. Because if you just jump to the activities, what basis are you using to select what activities are most important? It's hard to do. But if you're using this method where you're saying, I want to figure out what is going to be the greatest activities I can do to increase our productivity. Let me test it out by doing X. The activities that you need to do jump out at you. It becomes readily apparent and everyone can agree. That's how you get real alignment in your organization. When we all have the same aim and we're all looking for the same outputs, right?
And it's something that's measurable, um, progressively. Because what I find is that oftentimes there's a guy in the group that the people look up to,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever his idea is, even if it doesn't make sense, everybody kind of gravitates towards his idea because it was his. But if we could take his idea and say, okay, how do we measure progress towards that? And if it turns out there is no way to measure that, we don't want to just be spinning our wheels doing something so we could say we did it. We
Right.
need to actually, you made a statement before about results,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody was telling you how they have a person working for them that's not getting the results, but they care about them. And you were like, if you're not getting the results, I don't even want to talk about the reasons. You know, either you have the results or not. And so we need to have a incremental results based approach to the
Right.
things we do. And that's what I'm hearing you say this is.
That's right. It's exactly what it is. And it's really interesting that you bring this up because in an organization, what you want to do is, start out with here's the vision. So here's where I want to be in the future. And that vision is a high level result. And then I should break that down. Where here is my strategy. Well, here's what I'm going to do for this year. Here's my initiative, right? And I break that down. Well, here's what I'm going to do for this quarter. That's the basis for OKRs. And here's what I'm going to do for this sprint, for this time box. Here's what I'm going to do today. I'm constantly taking an objective and I'm breaking it down and saying, well, what piece of it can I fit into this time box? Right. And as long as I keep doing that and breaking it down, then I should be able to see a clear connection between what I'm doing today and reaching that vision that I want to get to in the future. Right. And as long as I have that link, right? But you got to have the connections, right? You got to break it down. What are you thinking about? I see a light in your eye.
Well, I thought I was thinking about quite a few things simultaneously. As you talk, I just keep on thinking of different examples of how this could have been so beneficial in our work.
Hmm.
Um, because for some reason, these things seem like common sense, but nobody thought of them. Nobody thought of them. And as you were describing, what I saw is a staircase. We do this, and then we do this, and then we do this, and then eventually we get here. But we have to make sure that each step on the stair can be objectively measurable. And then I thought about what you said about writing. We had to put these things in writing because the writing makes it objective. And there's a lot of things, if we would have talked about what will be the measurable result of this, that will get us to our ultimate vision, because we started with a vision of what we want.
Right.
But then we started doing what we emotionally felt like doing, but it didn't make sense to, and it seemed like I was the only one that understood how to think. Honestly, I honestly felt like I was the only one that understood how to think. It doesn't make sense. So I know we're emotional about this. We want to do it, but there's so many other things we can do that actually move us towards the goal, but it's not sexy. And
Right.
it's not, and, but it would move us towards our goal. And what happens is you have people out there doing work and work for months and months and years, and at the end we are no closer to the goal than we were at the beginning. But we've done all this stuff and wasted all these resources, and it used to drive me crazy. So as I'm hearing you talk, I'm just like, and honestly, and I was always the youngest person too, and
Right.
so it was like my views weren't respected because I was the youngest, but I knew I was saying the things that make sense because I used to do robotics and engineering, and I learned about computer logic. Yes or no, over here. Okay, yes or no, over here. The logic don't care how you feel, either yes or no, and go over here. But it seemed like nobody else could think like that. And the more you talk, and you talk about this stuff is so scientific, it's so logical. But I'm telling you, man, it people are not logical. They're not.
You're absolutely right. And kind of this is the beauty of, we talk about the Scrum framework and Agile, and what it tries to do is, because it knows underlying assumption that people are not logical, that people act on emotion. What it tries to do is just highlight when the actions that you were taking won't reach the results. Let's make it transparent to you so that you can decide whether or not you want to choose some different actions that will get you to the results. In our daily lives, we've been taught that in the absence of data, it's okay and actually preferred to replace it with either an excuse or our emotions. And so people will talk about passion. And when you actually bring up logic and why you're doing something, people will actually condemn you for it. They'll actually
Yes.
go, like, passion should be the reason. But the passion doesn't get you the results. It If you're doing the right actions, passions will help accelerate and drive you when you want to quit from getting the results. But in of itself, the passion doesn't do it. It's choosing the right activities that really does it.
So tell me what you think about this, because there's something that I honestly believed in my heart, but I had to face the reality that I was wrong, and it is wrong. And so in my mind, I would think if I explain it step by step, piece by piece, the people would get it. But for some reason, I would explain it good enough, and I always say I explain it good enough for a child to understand, because I'm a teacher. I would explain it, I would break it down to irrefutable stuff, but it was as though I said nothing.
Yeah.
Like, and I know it's just because the people, emotion shuts off intelligence. Your emotion shuts off the intelligence. So, can you just talk a little bit about how we combat? What are some of our tools and techniques to combat the fact that emotion shut off intelligence?
So here's the first thing you got to understand is that most often, once you achieve a certain amount of intelligence from the person, intelligence isn't the reason they won't do the things that gets the results. It's usually not a lack of knowledge. It's a paradigm, right? And I'll talk about this in terms of, I went through this journey myself. I was overweight, had high blood sugar, high blood pressure, and it was because my belief systems, my assumptions about the things that I should eat were wrong. I was eating a lot of processed foods that was just convenient. I was eating, I eat a salad, but I had to have salad dressing, and the salad dressing I put on the salad had more calories than the cheeseburger I could have got from Burger King, right? And without so it was the pattern of thinking, the pattern that I thought this was okay. And it wasn't until, I started doing things like, I have a continuous glucose monitor that actually looks at my glucose level, right? And it wasn't until I started looking at my heart rate, right, and blood pressure. And once I started looking at all this data, then I could see, here are the effects, right? So I have all this in my phone, so I can actually constantly look at it and look at it day over day, right? So once I could see the data and see the effects it was having, then my belief system started to change. So and in children, they don't have knowledge. In adults, most often we have a belief system which is basically having the wrong knowledge. And so when you break things down and talk to people about, like, here's why and here's what the real thing is, you can't they got something in here already. Until you move this thing out the way, they can't replace it with something that's correct. So it's really about managing the old paradigm they have, getting rid of it, instead of just giving them knowledge.
And then that also just made me think about what you said about having certain I forget the exact terminology, but it was along the lines of you have to interview who you work with. You can't work with everybody.
That's right.
And if there are people who are just going to refuse to see it, you maybe you should not work with those people, because um I'm seeing that, because once you, if you're gonna look and see your heart rate and see your thing and see all these things and still not get it, then perhaps you're just not the person for the coach to try to coach.
That's right. That's right. It won't work. So, and here's the thing. So, what I figured out, and what we figured out, what we do in Silicon Valley, we know alignment is so important, and we know you have belief systems that may be different from ours. So, we form everything into this hypothesis, and I may form the hypothesis and do the testing, not for me. I may already know and have the knowledge. I need to do it for the people that have some incorrect knowledge to change their paradigm, right? And now that I can actually experience, let's agree on what evidence you need to see that's going to change your beliefs up front. Now,
Okay.
once we agree on the evidence that you need to see that'll change your belief system, well, now we just do the experiment, do the activities that will collect the evidence, and then we present it. And hey, look, now that you see the evidence that you said you needed to change your belief system, can we actually exchange the bad assumption that you had with this new thing that is a new conclusion? Possibly, if it's strong enough, I may even call it a fact. Right?
So what I'm hearing you say is that people have to be willing to accept the scientific model.
That's right.
Yeah, they have to be willing to change their position based on the evidence that is gathered.
That's right. And
And everyone doesn't have an appreciation for science.
right. And again, if you're with people that, you know, science is based upon this experimentation and getting facts. If you have somebody, I'm just gonna say it out loud, and you'll come to your own conclusion. If you're working with somebody and they're saying they don't appreciate science, meaning that I don't appreciate actually learning new things, getting facts to make my decisions. Like, do you really want to work with that person? Because
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you're gonna make some bad decisions because of it.
Do they ever talk about in this whole agile scrum thing? Do they ever, because like it's to me like the opposite of the scientific thinking. Some will call it the religious thinking. We're gonna believe this way no matter what the evidence shows. Do they ever use that type of language?
We talk about it as the enemy because we want to dispel that notion. And in fact, what we want to do, and the reason we approach everything as an experiment, is if I'm trying to convince you of something because I believe my belief system is correct and yours is incorrect. Well, this goes both ways. You believe that what you believe is correct and that I'm in error. So the reason we call things assumptions and we test those assumptions out is I have to come to you tentatively, or else you're gonna reject everything we try to do. So I've got to agree that even though I believe this way, I call it my assumption. Even though I think it's fact, I'm gonna call it my assumption, right? You agree that the thing you believe that you think is fact is also an assumption, and it doesn't become conclusive until we gather enough evidence, right? Because you'll sense if you'll sense if I think I'm just right and I'm trying to convince you of something, you don't want to be persuaded, right? It's a waste of your time. So I need to come tentatively to you. And that's why we call these things assumptions up front. And it's not until we run the experiment, gather the evidence, that we can consider things fact.
Man, this is so cool. This is so cool. This is like nerd heaven, man. This is like nerd heaven.
Yeah, and it has to be this way because if it's not this way and we don't do these procedures, then it's very hard for me to get alignment. Even when we have a meeting and you say that you believe something and you say you're going to do something, well, most times, and you probably experienced this yourself, if they don't really believe it, then they'll do some actions not according to what we said we believed in, but you do your actions according to what you really believe in. So it'll stray, and you'll be in this position where you're doing activities that don't get the results, and we won't even know why.
Man, but I swear, you are the first person that makes me want to go work, man. Like this is so cool to see this just happening and developing. Like this is, I know this has got to be real satisfying work for you. You know, just to see these things, and you've got so much experience. If you help people all over the world, and you get to see these real life things unfold, man, that makes me envious. You know, I don't get to see anything unfold. You know, all I get is the enemy.
Well, again, it's the process, and it takes a lot to convince people that they should not operate the way they've been doing that has achieved subpar, not achieved the results that they wanted, to actually switch to this mode where you're constantly experimenting and learning. Like people think that sometimes their goal is to build something or their goal is to do these activities. And this mindset shift, a new paradigm is no, you're going to do the activities that you believe in. So the goal is to actually shift your belief system. And if I can control that, we're not now we're believing the right thing and the same thing. Now I don't have to watch you as much to make sure you're doing the right activities because you do what you believe in. So if I can change your belief system, now the overhead costs and management plummets. I don't need to watch it. Like I got a great daughter, and I taught her that she should eat salad. So when it comes time, for her to snack and everything, I don't have to watch the cabinet to make sure that she's not getting junk food. because she believes that she should eat salad, so she'll grab the salad. And the same thing happens at work, right? If you teach people and change their belief systems, if I teach people that customers are our primary focus and making them happy is what we should focus on, then I don't have to watch them to make sure they're taking care of my customers. They'll automatically do it, right? Now my management costs go down. It,
This might be off topic, but it's definitely related because what I hear you describing is how I come to understand kings learn to control their realms. You can't go out there and physically control all the people in the kingdom. So you have to control the way that they believe.
that's
And
right.
if you control their beliefs, you don't have to worry about their behavior. Um, can you say something about that? Does that connect at all?
It is totally my belief system, and I'll bring up something to you that I've talked about with other people before. And our prevailing mode of management was based off of the principles of scientific management, a book that was written by Frederick Taylor in like 1911. And his underlying principle was that you had this management class. These are the people that went to your Ivy League schools, right? And they would figure out all the processes and activities necessary to run a business, right? They created the factory, and then they went and hired people to operate in the factory. And the prevailing thought was, I needed supervision. I need to watch and make sure that each of these people did the correct activities the correct way. And the more they did that, the greater my productivity would be. And what we found out is that theory no longer holds true because most of our jobs, 60% of our jobs now are knowledge worker jobs. And in our society of knowledge work, what makes someone a knowledge worker is that usually they know more in their domain than their boss, right? So the underlying assumption for the old way of management was that the boss knew more than the people that work for them. So they were telling them, here's what you got to do. And our society has shifted. So now most of the employees, as a teacher, you know more about the subject areas that you're teaching than the principal who's supervising you. So they can't monitor to make sure you're doing the right thing. You can't test it in at the end. What I have to do is shift and say, here's the belief system. I need to manage your paradigm. Let me manage your beliefs because you know more than I do. So I can't manage your activities anymore. If I manage your beliefs, then you'll select the activities that are most appropriate for whatever goal we're trying to reach. And that's the new management prevailing way we're doing it that is sweeping across the globe, that is transforming lives, making people happier, and it's reducing costs because now I need less managers, right? When the king, you brought this analogy, the king changes the belief systems of the subjects. Then I don't need the armed guards in the street. I don't need the secret police on every corner to spy on people to make sure that they're actually doing the right stuff because they believe in doing the right thing, and you'll do what you believe in, right? So again, this is what's transforming everything right now, changing and managing beliefs. What do you think about this?
I think that this is all this is like The Secret. When The Secret came out and there was this secret knowledge and it was transforming everybody's life. Like you got the secret. I don't know what we call it, the secret of. I said the secret of success, man. You got the secret of success. This is crazy. Because I can see it. I mean, I can see it. I can see how with these principles, this paradigm shift, this approach, these practices, I understand why you've been able to make so many people so much money.
I'm glad you see it because when you think about it, if you are coming up with a decent hypothesis of how to make money, and then not trying to do everything, but testing it out to see if it's going to work, and then only putting your time and energy to the stuff that there's evidence that it does work, how can you not make more money, right? When you're trying to figure out on a constant basis, hey, what can I do to improve and reduce my cost structure, get more productive, test it out, and only pursuing the activities that actually prove with evidence that it will reduce your cost structure and will make you more productive, how can you not succeed with that? So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right with this. And it's funny because when I go into different organizations, sometimes it seems like magic when they can see, wow, look how my organization transformed. I got a 30% productivity improvement. And it's wow, like how did you do that? But when you're using these methods, it's like, how can you not get more successful? How can you not increase your revenue? How can you not reduce your cost structure? How can you not be more profitable? Huge
Brian,
shift.
this is nuts, man. Oh my gosh. I don't know. You know, you are such an asset to the community, man. I don't know. I'm so thankful that the creating the ancestors put it on your heart to do this and share this with us, man. We got to get this out, man. We got to get your message out because, you know, minority businesses are notorious for lack of success. But with things like these, we could become the most successful group in the groupings.
That's right. And again, I don't want to get people to have the wrong impression that I'm anti like passion. I believe in passion, but I believe that it should be subordinate to scientifically examining what is actually helping you, what's actually helping you to get to your goals. And use the passion to fuel it, but it shouldn't be the main driver. The results orientation should be the main driver. Like, and going through this process where you're actually looking for evidence to see what is actually giving you the results. That's the way things should work.
We need to be passionate about the process that works.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. This has so many applications, far reaching to like oh my God, Brian, man, you be blowing my mind. You blow my mind every week, man. Jeez.
Yeah, and you're right. Like, I do this with my daughter, right? I have her look at, hey, well, what's working for you, right? What's getting you the results that you want in your life, and what should you change? I just kind of showed you, again, I was telling everyone that, I lost, I gained like 20 pounds during the COVID lockdowns and everything, and I lost the weight. And how did I do it? Again, it's the feedback loop. So I get the measurements to say, hey, where am I at in terms of blood pressure? Where am I at in terms of my blood sugar? And I scientifically do different things. Okay, I ate this and it caused blood sugar to go up this much and not to reduce this much. All right, so let me try eating something different. Like I started running again. I used to run cross country when I was in high school, and I had stopped doing it as I got older. And I'm like, hey, look, let me do it 10 miles. I did 10 miles the other day, and look at the effect that has on my blood pressure, right? And so, it's this constant experimenting. So yeah, this has so much application to everything we do in life, as long as we actually take the time. Don't just do activities, right? Take the time to look at what are the effects, what are the results of those activities, so that you're actually choosing the right ones. People talk about how it's so hard to lose weight. Um, I found it rather easy. I was doing things before that were causing me to gain weight and couldn't get rid of it. And just experimenting to see, all right, well, what's actually going to get me to lose? Let me try this. No, let me. No, I tried the walking thing, and I just found out that I had to walk so many hours, and I got to the point where I was walking like 5 hours a day. Yeah, and it wasn't getting the weight off fast enough, and so I tried experimenting and said, "Hey, let's go for a run. Let's run longer. Let's run harder. Let's run faster." And found the right mix. And I'm not advocating one way or the other. But I am advocating is the process and doing the experimentation to see what works for you.
And we have to overcome. Can you say just a bit about overcoming your ego to be open to being able to experiment to see what the what is?
But this is a tough one. There, there's a famous book that I love, and the book is called Crucial Conversations. And the book has been around for a while. Every person in HR has a copy of Crucial Conversations on their shelf, right? And let me just go ahead. I'm actually Googling Crucial Conversations to figure out who the author is, so I can actually cite it properly, right? Um, and the author is looks like Carrie Patterson and Joseph Grini. And the reason I bring this up is because they have this thing in Crucial Conversations where they say, before you actually start, you have to start with heart. And the whole theme of Start with Heart is making sure that you're open. And how do I make sure that you're open? You have to be so committed to reaching the results that you decide that I'm not going to let anything get in my way of getting the results. Anything, including my own belief system, including my own ego. But you have to have that commitment first, right? And you have to really want the results. And this is why, when you think about it, in emergency type situations, somehow things get done when it's an emergency. That I have a cousin who's in the hospital now, and he wasn't eating right before, but after the doctor told him he's gonna die if he doesn't eat right and change his habit, all of a sudden he can manage to curb his appetite and change his eating habits. It's amazing when it's an emergency, right? Like, again, you got to be so committed. You change your heart first, and once you get that committed to getting the results, then you can actually subjugate yourself, get rid of some of the old belief systems you have, and be more open to accepting real evidence, real data. Right? But unless you're that committed, it won't work. Now, again, like, I hope that you're not in a situation where you have to almost die or something before you can make yourself that committed. Some people are like that. Some people have to have a near-death experience before they'll change their belief system. I found that I just have to focus on the result and want the result bad enough. And that's why the goal setting, specifying the results you want, is so important, I think, for an organization. Well, this has been a kind of an action-packed episode, I think. So
Actually,
we should probably go ahead and shut down for the day. But I'm hoping everyone got something out of this. Again, we talked about, yeah, again, you got your productivity hypothesis. You got to think about how you're going to make improvements, how you're going to get better. And the same way you came up with your customer hypothesis, same format. The only thing that switches the context. Now our context isn't the customer. Now our context is our sales, our operations, what's going to make us better. And as long as you follow the same procedures, you write it in the given if then format, where your then statement actually goes through and specifies here's the results that I expect to receive, I can test it out, right? See what works, look at the metrics and see what actually made our organization better. And that's how you can actually guide your directions in the right way. All right, with that, we'll wrap up. Any last comments from you, Brother Long?
On behalf of the whole world, Brian, man, we appreciate you because you are potentially transforming all of our lives, man. And I just want you to know from the bottom of our hearts, we value what you're doing and we appreciate it, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me here, and hey, I hope to bring many more. Thanks a bunch, everyone.